Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Guy Jeans. And today I have Mikey Wier on the show. Mikey.
Yo.
Hey,
morning.
man. Good morning.
How you doing?
Good, man. Welcome to the show. Super stoked to have you. I've got lots to talk to you about. I was trying to remember, first of all, how we met. And I have a vision of it, but I want to see if it's the same vision that you have. But do you remember where we met at?
You know, I was just thinking about you the other day because I was up in up above Fresno there. I gave a talk for the Fresno fly fishers on Thursday about the Klamath dam removals, and I was thinking about the old Team USA competition.
Uh-huh.
And is that where we met? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I remembered anyway.
So yeah, it was, and actually, the first time that did you compete in Fresno?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so that's probably where we initially met. Then was there, but we ended up, I guess, fishing on the same team in Colorado. And I remember, like, the first conversation I have, I pulled up on the Big Thompson. And you were eating a bowl of cereal or something. And then we kind of I think we kind of fished around the Big Thompson, and we're kind of preparing for the competition. I think the next day or something like that. That's how I remember it. Do you remember anything like that? Was Trevor Wine in that mix too, or?
Yeah, that was me and Trevor.
Yeah.
It was like guide life those days.
Yeah.
We were broke kids eating bananas and cereal in the morning and PB&Js making it happen.
Absolutely.
Drove out there to Colorado and just made it happen,
Yeah. It was fun, man. Those days, I sure did learn a lot. How about you?
Oh, a ton. Yeah, it was a great experience. Seeing everybody's how refined their techniques were. For me, it's like I did a lot of indicatorless nymphing, that's just always what I called it. I just called it nymphing or indicatorless nymphing. I didn't know that, needed a label, and everybody's like, oh, this style is Spanish nymphing, and this is Polish nymphing, and this is Czech nymphing, and this is, whatever. I'm like, sometimes I keep a little more line out. Sometimes I keep the line tight when I need to. It's just what I do for the given situation. But, it was really cool to see, to just learn from everybody, and
sure.
I picked up a ton of information from those things. I mean, I really did, and definitely, it's not typically my style to go to a river and try to just hoover the runs and pick as many fish as I can out of there. I'm usually a lot more selective in my personal fishing, the specific fish I'm fishing for and trying to target. But incredible experience, and glad I did it, and I would totally actually do it again. It was fun.
Oh, absolutely. Same here, man. Learned a ton from that. So your fly fishing background was basically around Tahoe, is that right?
Yeah, I grew up kind of just west of Tahoe, down in the foothills there, and started fly fishing pretty early. It was kind of weird because I didn't really have any friends or mentors or parents I knew that fly fished. It was just kind of this weird sport that I picked up. And so, I was just consuming as much information as I could from like Field and Stream magazines I'd find at Thrifty's, store in Amador County or whatever. And then I, met some older guys that fly fished eventually that down at the, they call the Delta Fly Fishers. I went to a few of the club meetings down there kind of by Stockton and Lodi. I really cut my teeth around Amador, the McCallamy, the Consumnes, the Calaveras River, these weird kind of obscure little creeks there in the foothills. And then started going to the East Carson on camping trips. And then by the time I was a teenager, I kind of found the East Walker and would get in there. And then I moved to Tahoe when I was like 18. And that's when it really kind of like took off. And met other people that were closer to my age that actually were into fly fishing and started getting into it pretty heavy around here, and that led to guiding and all that good stuff.
Working for Tahoe Fly Fishing Outfitters with Victor Babbitt.
I worked for Vic for I think over 15, 16 years altogether. I started in the shop a season, and then went to Clearwater Guide School and worked my way up to guiding, and my very first job was actually at the Sportsman, which was a little like tackle shop in Tahoe. I met Justin Ray and Kyle Giampali in a small business class at Tahoe Tahoe LTC, the little junior college up here. And yeah, Justin got me a job at the Sportsman. There used to be another fly shop up here called Round Hill Flies with a guy named Jeffrey Beer, and he was a cool dude too. And I spent a little time over there. He made me a rod one time, and but yeah, I then started working for Vic, and yeah, put in some time there. It was a good, great life experience too.
Yeah, for sure. That dude was real instrumental in, and not a lot of people know this, but I think I've told him once, years later, of course, that he was real instrumental in helping me get started, with my fly shop. My mom had walked into his shop. She was up in South Lake Tahoe gambling or something, and she went into the fly shop and she said, "Oh, my son's thinking about opening up a fly shop," and he's all, "Well, you need to talk. He needs to talk to this person, and this person," and I did, and that was Jamie Lyle and John Sherman and those guys, and they helped me get started, man. And that was really cool. And that was Victor Babbitt. I told him years later, man, he helped me out. What a cool guy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Vic was always good about sharing information. He didn't rarely held back. He was easy to talk to. And
he sold recently, right?
What's that?
Did he sell the shop?
He did, yeah. He sold the shop to Brendan and a guy named Michael, and they are doing great over there.
Awesome.
Or sorry, I think John and Brendan, brain fart. But Brendan had been guiding there for years, and then he kind of split off and started alpine fly fishing with Jared Beer, and then circled back and bought the Tahoe Fly Fishing Outfitters, and it's nice to see some new energy there. And Vic just bought a little lodge deal up in Montana somewhere, and he's living the good life.
So how did you decide that you were going to become a fishing guide?
It really just kind of fell in my lap. I mean, mostly because it afforded me the lifestyle that I wanted to live at that time, which was snowboarding in the winter and fishing in the summer, and to be honest with you, growing up in Amador County, I didn't even know that a fly fishing guide was a job. It wasn't on my radar at all. I didn't even know that existed. To me, fishing was something you did with your dad or your grandpa, and they taught you how to fish it. And so it's actually Justin Ray who got me started. We were literally in a small business planning class, and at the time, I think I wanted to make river boards or we used to do this river surfing thing on them call me, and I was going to start a small business making boards, and I was literally doodling on one of my papers one day in class, and I drew a picture of a brown trout coming up to eat a mayfly. I was just sitting there daydreaming, and Justin walked by my desk and looked down. And he's like, "Oh, dude, that's a cool drawing. What are you into, fly fishing or something?" I was like, "Yeah, man, I fish." And we just got to shooting the shit, and he's like, well, after seeing him, a couple weeks in class and talking and stuff, one day he's like, "Well, I'm going down to East Walker this weekend. You want to go?" And I was like, "Sure." And so we're driving down there in his truck, and I'm like, "So what are you doing in that small business class? What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm a fishing guide. I'm gonna break off and start my own business." And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean?" he's like, "Oh, I'm a fly fishing guide." I'm like, "Cool. What does that mean?" He's like, "I take people fly fishing." I'm like, "And they pay you? People
right?
Like adults pay you just to go fishing with them?" And he's like, "Yeah, I make really good money." And I'm like, "Dude, how do I get this job?" After fishing for the weekend, he's like, "Dude, you're pretty good. I'm gonna hook you up." And literally the next week he went and got me a job at the Sportsman fishing shop there in Tahoe. And then the next year I started working for Vic, and
nice. That's how you got started. Very
I
cool.
mean, I was a 19-year-old kid. Most of my friends were doing whitewater rafting, guiding, or renting bicycles and stuff, and making $50 to $70 a day. And so I could get out there and take people fishing and be out on the river and make a living. Carve off a few bucks for the summer. It was great.
I think the first time that I had heard about you was I was looking through, maybe it was a fly fishing magazine of something, and I saw this Scientific Anglers ad, and it was like you were carving the S for Scientific Anglers with your snowboard or something and going down a mountain, and it said Mikey Wier, and I'm like, who's that? Why is there snowboarding with the Scientific Anglers? I was like, that's cool. Is that right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The classic
Yeah,
Scientific Anglers ad.
Yeah, and I think that's the first time I had heard of you or seen anything like that before. That was cool. So did your snowboarding career kind of lead you into like doing stuff with the fly fishing community, or kind of related together type of a deal? Like also into your video career? Did they all kind of mesh together somehow?
Eventually, but it definitely wasn't like right away by any means. For the first like several years, it was almost like living two different lifestyles. In the winter, I was like long hair, snowboard bum, goggle tan, snowboard industry revolves around partying and, being punk rock. And then in the summer, I'd have to like cut my hair and put on the button-up shirt and go take the tourist fishing and get up early in the morning and so it kind of took a while for it to merge, because at the time there wasn't a lot of like crossover. It was still pretty early in the deal, and so I only had a couple friends really in like the snowboard industry that fly fished, and then it started to grow a little bit more. There was a couple more guys that were like pro snowboarders that started getting into fly fish, and it was kind of like starting to become a little more of a thing, and then eventually I could just kind of just be more of who I was all the time and not have to put on a different face for each sport kind of deal. And fly fishing was always kind of the yin to the yang. I'd spend all winter just beating the crap out of myself, jumping snowboards and doing stunts, and I'd be I could barely walk by the end of the season. And so at first, fly fishing was a way to like kind of zen out on the river and recover, but
for sure
then it got to where I was hiking miles and miles of guiding with heavy pack on and carrying waters and lunches for clients and stumbling around the rocks all day, covering 5-6 miles or more on East Carson down the canyon, and started to beat me up just as much as snowboarding.
For sure. Are you still doing any guiding at all, or any snowboarding?
Yeah, snowboarding a little bit. I definitely still snowboard. I try to get out powder days, which are kind of at a premium these days. I still love to shred pow, and so I still have a place in Tahoe just for that. And I get out there when conditions are good and my body allows. I've actually been feeling pretty good lately, just because I haven't really been like skateboarding or snowboarding a ton.
You're all healed up.
Yeah, it's weird. It's nice. I never thought I'd feel this good at this age after all that. But
are you guiding at all?
Not really. No. Yeah. I do like donor engagement trips with Cal Trout, where once you're a guide, you're always a guide. You kind of how that goes.
Sure.
I'll take our board members fishing, or our donors and friends, and I actually have some property now on the Yuba River, and we got a nice little fishery there. So I like hosting people and showing folks around when they come over.
Nice, man. Are you still doing videos like for your company BURL Productions?
Yeah, definitely doing some videos. I've been with Cal Trout for over 10 years now, and so most of my production effort and creativity has been pushed into that. We do a ton of media, really like built out the media program for them, and so that was most of my capacity. But for a good number of years, I'd also try to do at least one side project through BURL Productions, and mainly for many of those years, it was focused at getting into like the International Fly Fishing Film Festival and some of the other little film festivals and stuff. And so like maybe once a year, I'd take a big trip with the boys and film a video and do that. But this year I've actually broken away from that. I'm doing something different. I kind of took a little hiatus from the film festival deals. It just kind of feels like the same old thing, and so I actually did my first narrative this winter, where I'd actually written this script a number of years ago about, it's just kind of the story about a snowboarder kid from Tahoe that gets addicted to swinging flies for steelhead. And so I got, I hired an actor who was a friend of mine, and a couple other, actors to play the side parts, and we did it. We filmed this script, and so we're kind of in the editing process. We'll see how it comes out, but it's
bitchin'.
Yeah, something totally different. Nobody's really done like a story in fly fishing in a long time, and like a river Y and like a river runs through it, and otherwise nobody's doing that. It's not easy to do. It's hard, and so yeah. Well, I think it's gonna be awesome. It's coming out really good, and it's something totally different. It's not your average like feel good, fly fishing story. We went down to the river, and it was the perfect hatch, and I laid out a beautiful cast, and the fish came up and ate my fly, and then we all high-fived and had beers at the campfire.
Yeah,
it's something totally different. It's a story about depression and dealing with grief and loss, and that's kind of through the lens of a guy who uses fly fishing as his coping mechanism, and goes on this quest to like grieve his father that passed away. And it's kind of interesting because I had written the script like a number of years ago, and then in the script the guy loses his dad, and he's dealing with that, and then he goes fishing with the boys, and all I can think about steelhead, and he gets totally just like obsessed with it, and then all the like classic scenarios of eventually his girlfriend breaks up with him, and he loses his job, and next thing you know, he's living in Humboldt County, chasing steelhead, and then my life kind of became that. My dad passed away, and lost my fiance unexpectedly, and all this stuff happened, and like I'm that guy like living in my van, chasing steelhead around.
So wait, is this story kind of about you, kind of a deal?
It wasn't originally, no, at all, but just some, like life events happen. I mean,
I see.
It really just was. It could have been like any one of my friends' kind of story,
Sure.
It's a story about a guy, a snowboarder skater kid from Tahoe that, goes through this series of life events. But it really just ties in all the classic scenarios. Like every fishing trip you go on, especially you go steelheading on the coast, like at least one point in that trip, someone's like, "Oh man, if I didn't have a job, I would just be up here all winter living in my van, chasing steelhead around." Or like, "Oh dude, if I didn't have a girlfriend or my kids, or man, if I break up with my chick, I'm just gonna steelhead all winter,"
Right. Sounds good. Sounds really good. Yeah,
it's gonna be awesome. It's funny, it's sad, it's kind of tragic. It's great. I'm looking forward to getting a product out there for people to see, and this, doing something different.
What a lot of people don't probably know is that you're the guy behind all these films that that you've done with your production company. Would you mind talking about those for a second, or just which ones they were? I mean, I have a list of them here, but just kind of talk about each one of those if you have a second.
Sure. Yeah. It started out pretty innocent, just kind of goofing around, working there. We grew up as skaters and snowboarders, and so I think I was raised on old Bones Brigade videos and watching old surf videos. I love like Bruce Brown stuff, the Endless Summer and Endless Summer 2, and all, Step in the Liquid and all that. Just kind of our culture. And so in the fall, the snowboarding industry was all about the video premieres. It was like the biggest thing. We'd have these super hyped out premieres where everybody'd get together and you'd play the latest snowboard movie. And it was before social media, so it wasn't like you saw everybody's clips. It's like guys would spend all winter filming a video part, and it would just be like hidden until that premiere, and everybody would come out and be cheering, and it really got you hyped up for the season, and then you go back and you watch that video 100 times and try to study their tricks, and so the next year you could try those same tricks and see what was the hype and all that stuff. And so spring would come around, we'd be sitting there in the fly shop in the Tahoe fly fishing outfitters watching like Doug Swisher advanced fly casting and Lonnie Waller's steelhead fishing, these old like 3M VHS videos.
Yeah.
And we're like, man, we need to make some fly fishing videos. We're like, we need something cool for fly fishermen. And so we basically just bought a video camera and would go out and film with the other guys on our days off. me and John Copeland and Trevor Wine and Joel Tubbs and the other John Watson and the other guides from the time, you know.
Yeah.
Totally just goofing around. And so at the end of the season, this was probably in 1999 or 2000. I think my first video came out in 2000 or maybe early 2001, and Fish Eye won. It was like a video magazine. It was kind of modeled off of like 411 video magazine. It was like a skateboarding thing. So it had like spot checks and like guide profiles and little comedy skits, and it was kind of just a variety show of fly fishing. And made a little VHS tape, and we were playing it in the shop, and everybody that came in was like, "No way, this is awesome! You know, you guys are catching fish, and this rock and roll, and this is so cool." And then it was actually Jamie Lyle that came in one time, and I showed him Fish Eye won, and he was like, "Dude, you're onto something. This is awesome. Like, let me get you some sponsors, and like, I'm gonna hook you up with some of my brands." And so Jamie was really like encouraging and influential, and he helped me kind of get the first few sponsors going, and that made me think, well, shit, I should do this again next season. And so we made another video. So we did Fish Eye 1, 2, 3, and 4 over the course of the next few years, and then I wanted to do something a little bigger, and I was planning on maybe going back to. I had spent like 4 months in South Africa in like 2002 and 2003, and I had filmed some fishing stuff over there, and I bet it was mostly like a surfing trip with my best buddy and my dad, and traveling around and sightseeing, and we weren't really like focusing on fishing, but I got to like fish a few times, and I thought, well, man, I'd go back there. Nobody in the Western United States has seen anything like this. If I go back there and film some crazy stuff in Africa, like people are gonna be tripping out. And then my brother introduced me to a guy that he met in Tasmania, and he was planning on going to Argentina and Chile to go on. They were billing it as like a science expedition at the time. They were trying to get some grant funding or something to go collect some data. And I said, well, hey, you know, I've been wanting to film a fishing movie. Like, care if I tag along and film the trip? And one thing led to another, and we went down there and filmed Trout Bum Dairies. And that's the one that really kind of like put it on the map, you know. And we started doing some premieres, and you know, that kind of led to starting the fly fishing film tour, which, you know, all stemmed from that first movie. And yeah, kind of had a falling out with those guys after the trip, just on the business side of things. Just, you know, didn't see eye to eye on all that. But yeah, but it was good. You know, it was a fun trip. It was a good experience. The movie did good. And then that kind of spiraled into all these other cool things. I ended up getting sponsored by Patagonia. I became one of their first fly fishing ambassadors. That was all the way back in like 2004, 5, you know, it's been 18 years now. Yeah. And then, and then with the, you know, with Scientific Anglers, got kind of connected with them and did some snowboard style, like marketing, you know, ads in magazines and stuff like that. Kind of modeled after some of the corporate marketing tool stuff I've been doing in the snowboarding industry. And, yeah, man, that was a hype time in fly fishing, you know. Yeah. And then that got me all pumped up, and so I spent the next like 5 or 6 years just traveling around the world trying to film the craziest destinations. So I did SOULFISH 1, which was awesome. You know,
where was that? Where'd you guys go on that one?
Oh God, SOULFISH 1. I did the Florida Keys with Justin Kyle. I did Brazil with Andy Burke. I did Christmas Island with Rachel Andrus. I did Mongolia with Peter Mullet, who I actually met at that Team USA fly fishing competition in Boulder. And I was going to go to Kamchatka with Will Blair and film that, and then the airline fell apart that year, and then Peter called and asked me if I want to go to Mongolia, and so I went to Mongolia. And then I did British Columbia with that was SOULFISH 2. Fish I won. I did Belize, where I went down there with my friend Lauren Elliott, who was like 13 at the time and got like the Grand Slam in Belize. He was crushing. And it was cool. You know, it was a fun experience. And then that led into SOULFISH 2, which was I went to Egypt with Jeff Courier, went to Mongolia, went back to Mongolia with Jeff Courier. We did a 100-mile float trip that had never been done before, just totally exploratory. One of the rivers that we I'd stumbled across on my first trip to Mongolia, went back and floated 100 miles, shipped boats over there. It was a full-on expedition.
Bitchin'.
And then, I went to Egypt with Courier, caught Nile perch. I went to like some crazy lake in Mexico for largemouth bass, like Huites. I went to British Columbia with with April Vokey and Eric Jackson, who's one of my buddies, who's a pro snowboarder. And went back to Belize with Mike Coppathorn. He was, flats fishing in a wheelchair up the front of the boat, which is kind of a cool story.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that was another just badass multi-destination movie, and I'm good on the creative side, but I'm not great on the marketing side, and so they did good, and I sold the DVDs and all that.
Yeah.
And it led into Jim Klug started doing his multi-destination fly fishing movies, which was obviously a lot easier for him owning a fly fishing travel service. And so, they kind of took that model and ran, and then that, started the International Fly Fishing Film Festival. So you got the IF4 and the FT3 both touring now. And, it really helped kind of create that industry, I guess.
Oh, for sure. So you've done all these, productions and traveled the world, and it's kind of led you into your job, right? That you've been with Cal Trout for 10 years. Is that what happened? You kind of just eased into that and they wanted you to work for them doing video stuff or something?
Yeah. I've been guiding for so long and kind of utilizing these resources, and I was always into conservation. I'd always, even since I was, a teenager, had been interested in what the Nature Conservancy was doing, and the Sierra Club and organizations like that. Would buy memberships and stay in the loop. And then at some point around 2008 or 9, they announced that they wanted to raise the dam on Tardy Reservoir, and that's one of the reservoirs on my home river, the McCallamy. And I thought, oh man, how can I get active in this campaign? And at the time, I was shooting a lot of nature and wildlife stuff. Just spend a lot of time out in the woods and trying to get shots of wildlife, and a lot of it was around the McCallamy there. And I thought, man, I can't let them dam this river. And so I got in touch with Trout Unlimited and the Foothill Conservancy and CalTrout and the others that were working on that campaign, and ended up volunteering basically to produce a movie for them. And we made this cool movie that told the story of the McCallamy, and then I had a segment where I included all the wildlife and I gave them voices. I had my friends give each animal a voice, and so it was I'm a great horned owl, I'm a slender salamander, I'm a California king snake, and then at the end, all the voices chimed in. We're all Californians, but we need your voice to help protect our home, and that kind of thing. And it worked, and it played a big role in that campaign, I guess. It helped get the awareness out there, and we got the votes and the comments and the people speaking up at the meetings, and it was mostly the Foothill Conservancy driving the whole effort, but the movie definitely helped a little bit, and that's when I realized hey, I could use this to tell environmental stories that help make a difference. It's not just pros gone fishing and slapping fives and trying to get fish eating flies and stuff like that.
Yeah. So did that help?
So
did that help that film, and did it help with the not them raising the dam and stuff?
It did, yeah.
Nice.
We won the campaign. We got
Awesome.
East Bay Mud to take raising the dam off of their future water plan, and then
Nice.
it also eventually led to the wild and scenic designation for the McCallamy River, which just passed, I think, 3-4 years ago. It took another 7 or 8 years to get that. We got them to stop the dam. That was the first big win, and then kept moving on the campaign, and the dedication of the people at the Foothill Conservancy pushed through the wild and scenic designation for the McCallamy. So it was a big win, for my home river, and something that'll last, hopefully in perpetuity, or at least for a long time. So
congrats, man. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it was, and it really made me feel okay, I can actually use this medium for good. And so shortly after that, I did a video for Trout Unlimited. They just hired Dave Lass, and he was a buddy, and we Bernard and Dave and I did this crazy trip into the back of Hetchy one time, and we started talking about it, and so I made a little of a video to kind of promote Trout Unlimited's new program in Tahoe, and that went over well. And then I pitched like a year or two later. I was at one of the fly fishing shows there. I think the Pleasanton one, and I was walking by the Cal Trout booth, and they had just hired a new executive director, and I kind of pitched to him like, "Hey, man, I've been doing these videos, check out, here's a DVD." And he's like, "Oh, I know who you are. I've seen your movies." And he was a pretty, great angler in his own right. And he said, I just pitched, like, I was just freelancing doing video at the time. That was most of my living. And I'm like, "Hey, what do you think about me telling a couple stories? You guys have all this great work, but I think you're not like conveying the story to the general public as well as you could. You're doing this great stuff. Let's get the stories out there." And a few weeks later, he came back and he said, "Hey, man, you want a full-time job? When can you start?" And I was like,
Awesome.
God, I don't know. Sure. And,
Yeah.
and I had just spent like 3 years and a bunch of dough producing this killer multi-sport movie called CALI RUSH. And it was like the first like human-powered adventure sports movie. And, it was all like man-powered sports. It was like an eco action sports movie. So like split boarding and hiking, no ski lifts, no burning gas, and whitewater kayaking and rafting and skateboarding and kite surfing and surfing. And there was a little fishing segment in there and rock climbing. And it was a pretty badass movie, and I was planning to go around and tour it. And then Jeff, and we were going to do these like totally different like tours too, where bands and DJs and live art and play the movie and like this whole like thing. And then Jeff offered me that job, and I'm like, man, a steady income sounds great at this point in my life. And and then it just kept spiraling from there. I started making videos for CalTrout. We started telling these stories, and they really just were hitting hard, and people were stoked on it, and just kept going and going. And now we've got a pretty robust media program. The videos have really helped a lot. They've helped bring in tons of grant money, so I can legitimately say that, my videos have helped raise millions of dollars for fisheries conservation, in the last 10 years, and led to a bunch of killer projects. And I love being part of CalTrout. I mean, the ethos of that company just really falls in line with my personal ethos when it comes to ecosystem services and nature-based solutions and healthy functioning ecosystems and, protection of native fish and cold water ecosystems in general. And it's, it's an honor to be part of that and to have helped, build that program up and keep the work going,
Absolutely. It's like, I was looking at CalTrout's website yesterday and just looking at all the different projects that they have going on and trying to help cold water species is amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's just... it's incredible. And the volume of work we're doing now, I was just on my staff call before this, and we've hired 11 new employees this year alone. I mean, the growth has just been phenomenal. I mean, this was like through the the economic downturn. I got hired in 2012. We were just kind of like coming out of recession and through COVID and everything. I mean, our work never slowed down during COVID, and it didn't affect any of our projects at all. I mean, we just kept going. And, so when I started with CalTrout, I was the 11th or the 12th employee hired. I mean, in the entire organization, I was like the 11th employee. Wow.
We were a $1.5 million organization in 2012 when I started, and this year we just did our budget at like $28 million.
Nice.
And like 38 employees or close to 40 employees now.
So cool. So great.
So yeah, they're cranking, and we're cranking. We're all busy. This month's been insane for me. I did an event last weekend in Guerneville, and then a talk for a fly club in Fresno on Thursday. Tomorrow I'm heading to Mammoth for a project tour. Back for the Yuba Fest on Saturday on the Yuba River. And then, a couple more events after that. We're busy.
What's the biggest, or I guess what's the projects that you guys are most focused on right now?
Oh gosh, there's a ton. I mean,
Is
we've got, big projects in every region. I think for me, one of the things that I'm the most interested and stoked on is the Klamath dam removals.
Okay.
I've gotten to spend quite a bit of time up there, and it's just one of my favorite places in California that's just so remote and so wild back there, wild wilderness, wild animals, wild people. It's just, it's such a cool corner of California, and it's going to be the biggest river restoration project in history. The whole world is looking at this and seeing, how this is going to go down, and it could serve as a model for many other projects for decades to come. It's the biggest social justice project probably happening in America right now. Reuniting the tribes with their salmon, restoring,
Nice.
continuing their historic fishing rights. Giving them back a wild river in perpetuity. For like the 7 tribes up and down the Klamath that literally still rely on that river for a living every day. And there's not very many places like that left, where a river is healthy enough to actually provide a living for people.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, it's a big, it's a big deal. And just all the ecological benefits of it, and the economic benefits of it, the ecotourism aspect of it. And there's just, it's a multifaceted project, and it's a really big deal. And CalTrout's been, working on that project for over 20 years. I mean, Curtis has been there, I think 21, 22 years now. He's been working on the Klamath dam removal since he started with CalTrout. So he's been at every, all those early meetings and negotiations and all that. And then Drew Braw kind of took the reins from there for a good 5 years. And now we have a new guy, Damon Goodman, up there in Shasta, and he's kind of taken over now. And we're highly involved. And then so spiraling off of that is we have all these other projects that we've been doing to prepare for this. So we've been really like one of the only organizations that's boots on the ground in the Shasta River, the Scott River, trying to move a little bit into the Salmon River, but working on doing good work and restoration on the tributaries to the Klamath, and specifically the Scott and the Shasta, which are 2 of the best spawning tributaries, and also the 2 that are closest to the dams. And so these are the populations of fish that are going to repopulate those upper areas once the dam is out. And so we've been doing a ton of work and hard work. I mean, we're working with ranchers there in Siskiyou County that are, primarily anti-dam removal people, but we are giving them, millions of dollars worth of infrastructure upgrades to their ranches to make them more efficient, so we can keep more water in the streams and remove barriers and make it better for coho salmon, for Chinook, and for the different runs of steelhead, and then all the genetics work we're doing up there, with the identification of the gene that separates spring run Chinook from fall run Chinook. They isolated the genome that, proves that it's a genetic adaptation that took thousands or millions of years to do. And so we were able to list those fish as a separate species, which adds additional protections to them. So it's, there's a ton going on up there. It's I could go on the rest of this call just about the Klamath.
There's a lot of dam removals projects that are in the works, right? Like the Matilahaw Dam, is that one still kind of in the works there too? And have you heard anything about that?
Yeah. So CalTrout did a comprehensive analysis of basically every major dam, and even most of the smaller barriers in California. And just to look at, which ones are still operating how they should be, which ones are going to need, infrastructure upgrades in the coming years, which ones are totally obsolete. And when I say obsolete, it just means that it's not performing the function that it was built to perform anymore. And so, we got dams of varying degrees all over California, and they were built for different stuff. Some of them are hydropower dams, some of them are flood control dams, some of them are silt control dams. Some of them are dams that were built to impound water for municipal uses, for agriculture, and for municipalities. And so assessing whether these dams are still functioning, and then we distilled it down to like 25 that are, basically not working how they should, or are coming up for needing to be upgraded. And then we distilled that down to our top 5 dams, which are the biggest priority. And all these are the ones that are on the hit list, which is basically dam removal. And so you got Rins Dam on Malibu Creek. You got Matilahaw Dam on the Ventura River. You've got Searsville Dam in Stanford there. And then you have Scott Dam on the Eel River, and then the Klamath Dams, which includes all 4 of the main stem dams on the Klamath. And so that's our top 5 priorities right now. All those are Rins is slated for removal. Matilahaw is slated for removal. It's been a 20-year process or more. Yeah. But Rins was recently approved to be removed, and so now we're working through that process. Matilahaw is definitely in the way. They actually just opened up the first bridge below Matilahaw, so they had to do a bunch of infrastructure upgrades below the dam before they could remove it to accommodate for the silt and stuff moving through there. So they just finished the first big bridge project that's going to allow the next step for dam removal. So that's cool.
Oh, wow.
And then the Scott Dam, same deal. It's like there's only 2 dams on the Eel River. It's a small hydro project called Potter Valley, where Scott Dam impounds the water, and then down 12 miles downstream, there's a smaller dam called Van Arsdale that actually has fish passage, but it just backs up the water enough to send it into a pipe, which goes a mile through the mountain and then comes out into Potter Valley, and then eventually ends up in the Russian River watershed. And so a lot of Eel River water's sent over there and used to grow grapes and all kinds of crops through Potter Valley and weed and everything else in that community and economy. And so there's a lot of need for that water coming through still. But, as far as like native fish recovery, that's one of the best potentials in all of California, if not the Western United States, to have a completely free-flowing Eel River again, and actually the best habitat for salmonids long-term and for summer rearing, and is above Lake Pillsbury. And so FERC gave up their license, the Federal Energy Regulatory Committee, PG&E gave up their license, their FERC license to run that project. And so that opened it up to different solutions. So after a number of studies, it's actually, finally been concluded that dam removal is probably the preferred alternative for that project as well. And so now we're going to move forward with all the environmental studies and everything else needed to, and it's still like in negotiations, finding the right solution, the right partners to take over that project, that infrastructure. And so hopefully we'll be able to move forward with dam removal. And, it could take 10, 20, 30 years, but I think there's a good chance that dam's going to come out too.
It's so crazy how long it takes and what goes into it. A lot of people have no idea, what goes into taking down dams or just, restoration work and stuff like that. It's crazy, all the amount of work that goes into that. I wanted to ask you, I'm going to kind of move down into our zone, the Southern Sierra. And I read somewhere or heard somewhere that you had ridden horses into the Golden Trout wilderness. Is that right?
There was recently a Cal Trout trip that went up there. I wasn't on it, but Tracy Diaz, who's our marketing coordinator, runs our comms department, was up there, and we work with a studio. I contract out some of our video work to these guys named Pusher, and they do video work for us now too. And they're up there with Craig Ballinger, and they're doing a little Kern River rainbow trout movie, kind of an awareness piece about Kern River rainbows. And I have been up there, like when we did Liquid Gold, I hiked up through some of the headwaters of the Kern with Craig, and I've been up there on other trips too. And so I have gone into also some of the small creeks and looked for little Kern golden trout.
I remember that. Kern there. I remember when you stopped in the shop. That was years ago. And you were on like a little mission to go get all those trout, I think, or something.
Yeah, we were doing our SOS report, our State of Salmons report, and so I wanted to have some photos and some media of all of our native endemic inland trout species. And so I did get some cool photos and videos of little Kern Goldens and their native habitat, Kern River rainbows, true pure strain California golden trout. And I'd like to do more of that. Yeah. Spend more time doing that kind of, you know, being out in the backcountry and filming fish being fish in their native habitats.
Well, I wanted to tell you, and maybe you know more about this than me, but I don't know if you've heard, this has been going on for over 20 years here in Kernville, but we have a hatchery here in Kernville where they bring, you know, hatchery fish over, and they stock this section called the 20 mile section, which is a put and take fishery. And then above this bridge, called the Johnsondale Bridge, it's managed for 50 miles as a wild trout fishery. And so for years now, they've been trying to locate the purest strain of Kern River rainbows. And so the folks, including myself and other folks, have been going way back in the backcountry collecting samples of fish, and they've been going to UC Davis, and they've been trying to find the purest strain of Kern River rainbows, and it's taken a long time. But apparently they found the purest strain in a creek way back in there. They first thought it was at Big Arroyo Creek, which is a tributary to the Upper Kern in Sequoia National Park, but apparently that isn't now or something. So anyway, what's going on in town is the hatchery here got some money, and this is a while ago, and it's defunct now, but they were actually making the hatchery ready and preparing it for native Kern River rainbows, where they were going to raise Kern River rainbows only in the hatchery. And so in the last 3 or 4 years, the hatchery is closed, and there's a big political thing going on right now where they're trying to find out why and what's going on with that. And so there's this big uproar going on because our hatchery is closed, and they spent all this money, you know, trying to fix it up and making all these indoor runs and outdoor runs for the Kern River rainbow. And so we're kind of in this weird stage where there's nothing going on with the hatchery, and it's all political right now. So I don't know, have you heard anything about this?
Yeah, we've been staying semi up to date on it. I actually sat in on a few of the meetings with the groups of stakeholders involved, trying to get the hatchery back going. And I can't remember everybody's names right now, but we're trying to figure out ways CalTrout can help. We've submitted a few comments on behalf of the stakeholders to CDFW and others. And yeah, you know, I'm not, you know, super pro hatchery, but I'm in favor of using them as conservation hatcheries, you know, to get things going again. I mean, just with the state of our fisheries, it's definitely necessary. I actually did a little movie a few years back about the McCloud River red bands and kind of the plight of the red bands, and they live in these small little streams, you know, real similar kind of to the Kern River rainbows, and they were drying up in the drought in like 2013 and 14. They had to take them into the hatchery in Mount Shasta and do some like crossbreeding and keep the genetics healthy. And then because they've been isolated in these little streams for thousands of years, and so they crossbred them from the different streams to keep the gene pool a little healthier. And then, you know, I went out there with them when they put them back in the streams like 2 years later when conditions improved. You know, there's like environmental markers they're trying to hit, and when they do, they took the fish back out there. And you know, I think that program kind of serve as a model for what you guys are trying to do down there on the Kern. And you know, CalTrout wise, it's hard just capacity wise, because we have so many big projects happening that are, you know, large landscape scale stuff, and we can't be everywhere. And, you know, maybe as we grow, we could expand more into the Kern. We do have some projects down there, for sure. A lot of meadow restoration stuff in the upper, you know, headwaters parts of the Kern.
The South Fork of the Kern, right? The South Fork of the Kern, maybe? You guys have stuff going on over there?
Yeah, we did Osa Meadows, and there's something happening in Horse Meadow, and I can't remember the name of all the meadows we're working in up there, but, you know, we did some pretty large-scale restoration, but also as a component of that, I'm not sure how much you know about this or talked about this, but we've been doing like a GHG greenhouse gas carbon sequestration study happening up there in those meadows at the same time as the restoration, kind of like tied into it. And so pretty cutting edge science that Caltrout's leading up there, where we've had field techs go up every month that's not covered in snow and do a series of readings. You put this like cap in the ground, you traps the gases coming out, and you study the amount of greenhouses coming out, the amount of greenhouse gas coming out. It's basically like the decomposition process, and it tells you how healthy that soil is, how much carbon the soil can store. And so we would do it on, you find a degraded meadow that needs some restoration, that's, dry and messed up and trampled from cattle and then cars driving through it and the water table's gone. And you take your samples there and you find a healthy meadow that's, what you would consider to be in great shape. And you take the samples there, and then we do the meadows that we're restoring, and we see how the data changes throughout the process of restoring the meadows. And then that data can be used to start like carbon banking type mitigation, stuff like that, where you can say, a restored meadow is going to sequester X amount more carbon, which is way better for the environment, fights climate change. And then you can maybe, commodify it in a way to increase the pace and scale of meadow restoration as well. And so that's kind of a cool, like, cutting edge component of the meadow restorations we're doing around there, in addition to just like the ecological benefits, studying the carbon sequestration benefits as well. And so, that's all kind of happening up there in the headwaters of the Kern.
It's so incredible that Cal Trout's doing so much, man. It's really neat.
Yeah, I'm honestly blown away. I mean, every time, like I said, we just had a staff call this morning. It's like every call, it's just like, new people coming on and new projects going on. Like I can't keep up with it, man. I'm like been like the roving reporter for years here, driving around. Like I'm like the guy that's seen more of our projects than anybody, because I get to go to all the different regions, and I'm kind of like the rover here, bouncing around and taking photos and video and doing interviews. And so to make these like project videos, I get to take kind of a deep dive into like each one of these projects and interview partners and stakeholders, and really look at the aspects of it to kind of convey the story to the public. And so I mean it's incredible, and it's a lot, and it's all like really cool stuff. It's a lot of time on the road, but everywhere I'm going is awesome. Like CalTrout never sends me to like terrible places. I don't have to go to like downtown LA for work.
Right.
I'm like out in these killer, remote, beautiful streams and creeks, and we're working in some of the most beautiful parts of California for sure.
If somebody wanted to join Cal Trout, how would they go about doing that to contribute? Yeah,
I mean, you can just go to our website, caltrout.org. There's all kinds of different options. You can pay your $35 a year membership, and that kind of gets you all of our media, gets you on our emailing list, might get you a little swag, depending on what you sign up for. I mean, I really always try to promote like kind of the monthly giving. I mean, it seems like a little better way to go, and it kind of keeps our unrestricted revenue flowing, which helps the organization be a little more nimble. And be able to change course and focus on things that matter, and to address issues that just kind of come up as things do, because a lot of our funding is allocated by big grants, and it's very specific to those projects. And so that unrestricted funding from like memberships really help us be able to tackle new challenges as they come up, and stay nimble as an organization. And then you get all our media, you get our cool videos, you get our watershed reviews, and you get our stream keepers log. And, if you really want to step it up, you can become part of the Golden Trout Circle. That opens you up to some benefits of trips and stuff like that we host for people every year. You can come to our trout camp up on the upper Sacramento River outside of Mount Shasta there. And so there's some added benefits to that, if you really want to step up your game and help native trout.
That's awesome, man. So what's the next plan for you? Are you going to stay and hanging with Cal Trout for the rest of your life until you retire, or what's going to go on with you?
I'm not sure. I usually could. I do love.
It's a great job, man. It's a great job.
It's a great job.
Yeah.
And the stuff we do, and to me, it really just started from spending all those years guiding and being out on the water 5-6 days a week, and seeing the changes in our fisheries. It's like fly fishing isn't like other sports, where the more people that get into it, the more resources you can allocate to it. Like if you're a skateboarder or a BMX bike rider or a golfer, you know, like the more people do it, you can build more courses, you can build more tracks, you can, you know, make better facilities to do those sports. But fly fishing, it's like, it is what it is. I mean, there's a finite amount of places that you can do this sport. And as the sport grows, I mean, there's just more and more of a need to make the places that we do have the best they can be. And, you know, I really got heavily involved in the regulation changes, you know, with CDFW. You know, wasn't really like in my work plan for those years. It's one of those things that just kind of came up that we had to tackle, because to me that was one of the biggest things that was going to directly affect our fisheries, you know, for years. Like I said, guiding, I made a living off these fisheries for years. So I just want to like turn around and give back. And so that was, you know, that was a big deal. And we went to, you know, all the meetings we could and wrote all the letters and made all the recommendations. And you know, we're still toiling with CDFW over some of the changes. You know, we got some stuff we wanted and some stuff we didn't, as you always do. But, you know, personally, I think California should have the most progressive fishing regulations in the nation, and we should be leading the way. I mean, we have the ecosystems, the ability to do it. And, you know, and it goes back to, I mean, for me, that's the true heritage of this landscape, the true natural heritage of this landscape. You know, and you hear that word thrown around a lot. I mean, I grew up in cattle country, and, you know, you hear these ranchers, oh, I'm a fourth generation rancher. It's my heritage to grow here. I'm a fourth generation almond farmer. It's my heritage to grow almonds here. That's the very, very short-sighted picture. I mean, the true heritage of this landscape is that it's a salmon and trout producing ecosystem, and, you know, all inhabitation across the West Coast was centered around salmon runs for thousands and thousands of years. I mean, they were like the signature of this landscape, and California has the ability to produce big wild salmonids and a lot of them, and we need to just, you know, step out of the way and let the ecosystem do that. I mean, that's what it was historically designed to do. You know, the Central Valley and our rivers produce millions and millions and millions of migratory salmon, you know, and millions of migratory birds and mammals and everything else that went with them. And salmon, you know, sustain this ecosystem. And so we're doing it a huge disservice if we let those runs disappear in our lifetime. I mean, to me, it's like the ultimate tragedy. And so it is, you know, it's something worth fighting for, and it's something I believe in. And, you know, it's an honor to do this kind of work and, you know, play a small part in these big projects, I guess.
The Cal Trout should be proud to have you, man. All the stuff that you do and how passionate you are about it, for sure. So the last, go ahead, man. Sorry.
No, I was just saying it's worked out great for both of us. And, you know, and then for me, like, I took it even a step further, and I'm doing the ultimate kind of Doug Tompkins, put your money where your mouth is kind of style of conservation. And I found an incredible piece of property on the Yuba River that's like critical habitat for spring run Chinook. It's one of 5 habitats left in the entire Central Valley that are viable for spring run Chinook. It's an incredible habitat for fall run Chinook, for Central Valley steelhead, for wild, you know, native rainbow trout. And I found an investor to go in with me, and we bought this place. And so we're nice. Helping, you know, in real time protect habitat for native salmonids and a myriad of other wildlife. And so I'm kind of managing it as a preserve, you know, of course, little fishing with friends and family, but mostly just keeping it wild and keeping the fish safe and healthy there. And, you know, keep doing that too. So
absolutely.
Love to have you come by if you're ever in the area and come check it out.
For sure, man, for sure. So I always like to end the show with, you know, something that doesn't really have to do with fishing or conservation or anything like that, but I always like to listen or hear what folks are listening to music-wise. So you have anything lately that you've been listening to music-wise?
Oh, gosh.
Put you on the spot, man.
No, it's cool. You know, lately I've been in kind of like I've been listening to a lot of like Chet Baker and Calio and, you know, kind of like I don't want to say like indie rock, but more kind of like a mellow, like rock. There's a band I really like called Jared in the Mill that I've been rocking to lately.
What kind of music is that?
Kind of just like rock, like kind of, I don't know, I guess you'd call it indie rock.
Cool.
He's out of like Phoenix, Arizona, a lot of bluegrass, Rose's Pawn Shop. They're one of my kind of favorites lately. You know who they are. They're out of SoCal there. I got a variety of stuff on my phone, but those are kind of some of my jams lately.
Awesome. That's cool, man. Well,
if you're into hip hop at all, Rush Sturgis put out a hip hop album. If you know who he is, he's like a super badass whitewater kayaker. Like literally one of the best in the world. And he put out a hip hop album called "A Life Worth Living," and it's cool because he's, you hear most rappers talking about whatever they're, get money, get girls, flashy lifestyle. And, he's rapping about like running rivers and shooting waterfalls and like, watching your friends die in front of you. But it's like legit, he's dropping 80-foot water. He's like literally one of the best guys in the world. And so it's, he's backing it up, that the stuff he's spitting is not just like, I'm the best, I'm the baddest, I'm the coolest, I got the biggest ego. It's like, he's legitimately done like some of the gnarliest, expeditions in the world.
Very cool, man. So I've got producer, editor, director, videographer, storyteller, conservationist, professional snowboarder, fly fishing guide. Anything else I can add to your list? It's pretty amazing, my friend. You're a talented mofo for sure.
I actually really like building. I've done a lot of construction stuff in between,
Oh, really?
That's been like
builder
in the
awesome.
in the spotlight. But yeah, I mean, in the off seasons in Tahoe between guiding and snowboarding, I've often worked different, tile or masonry or construction gigs, and so I also, kind of like my side hustle's been real estate investing, doing kind of like fixer flippers. I love building and working on stuff. So I've done a few properties now that I've bought and fixed up and sold. And so
businessman as well. Okay, let me throw that in there.
I just kind of like have been coming to the end of remodeling the house on our property at the Yuba there, and it's been fun.
Very cool. Well, Mikey, thank you so much for being on the show, man. And I'm hoping to have you on again sometime if that's cool.
Yeah, no, I'd love it. I mean, plenty more to talk about for sure.
Oh, for sure, man. Well, we'll talk again, man. Thank you so much, and have a good one, buddy.
Yeah, dude. Great catching up. Appreciate it.
Man. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Cheers.